Bank is now in the books, and now we're seeing the results of Money in the Bank through Raw and Smackdown. I didn't do a Raw review because I just wasn't in the mood to. That show was just weird. The opening was cool with Ronda Rousey kicking everyone's ass, but the rest of the show just seemed to be off. And it was good, then was bad. Dolph Ziggler wins the IC title from Seth Rollins. What? Why didn't they just set up Seth Rollins with Dolph Ziggler for the show and leave Elias out of it? I like Elias, but why didn't you do that? But what was the ending of this show going on with... What was that with Braun Strowman? You guys tell me below what you thought about all of that show coming in Raw along with SmackDown if you want. I don't care. But you look at the results of this SmackDown after Money in the Bank. We had a lot of things going on here. One thing that wasn't going on, not much was going on with the women. Not much. I know Carmella opened the show and Asuka was shown and Ellsworth was shown. But other than the other match that happened with the women, not much happened for development for anyone. Not for Charlotte, not for Lana, not for Naomi. Not anyone except for Becky Lynch and Asuka. That's the only development we got. And I find that kind of not great. But it is understandable. If they got a smaller writing team, which is probably one guy, it's going to be right the way he is. But let's get to the women first. Was Carmella effective? The opening felt really forced because she was trying to act like a good girl, which she can. She's supposed to be a pain in the ass. That is Carmella. If you don't like Carmella, good. She's doing her job. She's pissing you off. In the ring, she doesn't do very well. But outside the ring, being an annoying pain in the ass, that's her job, and she does it pretty well. And I saw it, obviously, she was trying to play to the crowd, being nice, and basically saying, Mella is money. Well, get this, Mella. If you weren't careful with that top, your melons were about to pop out, and we would be paying you money to see them. I don't know what possessed her to wear that top. Mind you, she looked good with that top. But if she hadn't been careful, her melons would have been making her some money. In other words, she would have got herself in trouble, and she would have to pay the FCC for something she wasn't supposed to do. They don't show nudity. We got the Ellsworth coming out, which was good. I'm still not happy how he left before, and I don't know how they're going to treat him now. The guy got over twice, as a face and as a heel. Does this mean the WWE understands that if he's put as a face or a heel and allowed to run with it, he'll make the money? Or would they do the exact same thing they did before, get pissed off that he was getting over, and pretty much bury his ass like they did in Europe, where every night they went to a different show at a different time, they had the women kick his ass? I'm saying this now. I don't know how long his stint's going to be. I'm just hoping the ending will be better than it was the last time. But does he do a good job? Of course he does. Then, well, I'll say this. His entrance was obvious. You could see him walking in as Asuka in her clothes. Then Asuka gets mad after what he said, comes in, kicks his ass, and then gets her face kicked in by Carmella. I see this. I could be wrong. Asuka versus James Ellsworth at Extreme Rules. Not Asuka. Well, if it's not at Extreme Rules, it's going to happen before Extreme Rules in the next 3 weeks. I think it's Extreme Rules the next pay-per-view. I believe I'm right. But I wouldn't be surprised if Asuka goes up against Ellsworth. He is in the same weight class as her. He is roughly about the same size as her. And they could probably do some good work. We know Ellsworth can wrestle to a certain extent. So we're going to see possibly Asuka versus Ellsworth before Asuka versus Carmella again. It's going to happen. It will happen. It just counts when. Either at the pay-per-view or before. Now, let's go through Becky Lynch versus... Look, I like Iconics. They're good talkers. They're annoying. That's their job. Just like with Carmella. She may be a pain in the ass and she botches her words sometimes. She's still effective as a heel. Look at the Iconics. Sometimes they're hit and miss. I'm not going to lie about that. they're damn good looking women. And they do seem like they're smart and they're good with their timing and they're good with their talking. But sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss. And in this situation they missed, and I believe it was the writers who did it. The writing was not good for them, trying to insult Becky Lynch. It just didn't hit. Then you got Billie Kay going against Becky Lynch, who, I gotta say, now that she changed her ring attire, now that she's done a lot more than just wrestle, she's been doing things like up, up, down, down, and a couple of other things behind the scenes where people have seen her, her interest has picked up again. Because when she was hot in 2016, now she's beginning to pick up again in 2018, 2 years later. That's just sad. It shouldn't be like that, but you know how the business is. What did this accomplish? Nothing. It really didn't give her any momentum. I mean, she did great. Look, the 3 women I said that was in that ladder match 2 days ago was, you had Naomi, you had Ember Moon, and you definitely had Becky Lynch. Those 3 look the best out of everybody. They just did. And I love me to Sasha, and she looked good, but those 3 did the best work. Becky dealing with Charlotte, Ember Moon taking on everybody else, Naomi taking on everybody else, and then I say it, Naomi versus Ember Moon. That must happen. Those 2 look like they could have a feud. A Texan versus a Florida girl. I wish they could make a storyline basically talking about which state is better than the other. And they try to say, hey, you know that Florida State has always kicked the ass of Texas. And Ember Moon gets mad and says, who the hell do you think you are? Texas is better than Florida. Make a feud that way. It may be a stupid, simple feud, but it is a feud. Let's move on to the thing that angered me the most. I mean, I got furious with this. I was happy at first. Sanity finally airing. Maybe it was because Eric Young was hurt or there was some type of situation. I never checked to see the reason why Sanity didn't come in debut earlier. I think somebody got hurt or there was some type of situation where they just couldn't bring them out. Fine. I'm waiting for them to go to the squash match until I saw who they were. They're right here. They're in the Moneymaker. My Moneymaker, baby. They're right here and I take away. Why? Why would you sacrifice the Usos? Why? It was bad enough they had to go through the Bludgeon Brothers, who I felt were not packaged right because Luke Harper was not the one to do the damn talking. They had to talk more, and it should have been Luke who did it. But no. You had them act the way they were, get over on Usos, get over on Usos again, and made the Usos look weak. But then we go back to booking that happened in 2013, 14, and 15. Where the Usos get their ass whooped for no fucking apparent reason. I'm sorry for cursing, but this angered me. There was no match between Usos and Sanity. The Usos just got themselves beat down. Yes, it is a feud. But why couldn't you, if I'm right, Primo and Epico are still on Smackdown, the Colognes. If I'm correct. You guys can tell me below. If they're not there anymore, if they're not on there and they're on Raw, fine. But as far as I know, Primo and Epico, they are still on that roster. Why couldn't you throw them to the wolves? Why did it have to be the Usos? Why? It was just bad. And then it gets worse. I don't know who decided to book this. Why would you have the Bludgeon Brothers go up against the club again? I didn't even watch the match. I've already said it. I don't like looking at the kickoff show unless it's something special. And it wasn't special. The Bludgeon Brothers beat their asses before and they beat them again. Why didn't they use this opportunity to bring out Sanity again and destroy the club and stare down the Bludgeon Brothers, or at least beat the crap out of the Bludgeon Brothers and say, we are the dominant tag team here now? Why didn't they do that? Why? I'm sorry. It just made me rant. That angered me. Now we go to the rest of the show, which it wasn't all bad. Nakamura had an interview. He did all right. Talking about AJ, dealing with what it was, and it kind of felt a little weak saying, oh, the ref did not speak Japanese and he counted too fast. That just sounded weak. That really worries me. Like I said in my review of Money in the Bank, because they've done nothing with Shinsuke, they don't know what to do with him now. It just looks bad. But then, they kind of give us a little bone. A tiny, tiny bone. Because now we're dealing with Jeff Hardy, dealing with Shinsuke Nakamura, probably going for the U.S. title. Couldn't go for the world title, let's go for the U.S. title. Now you see Jeff all painted up with his glazed eyes. Cool. But he can't be Jeff Hardy. You know who he's got to be? Brother Nero. If he had said, I am woken, you have woken up my eye, and now Brother Nero is awake, and he is ready to go for you, I think that would have been better than just regular Jeff Hardy. He needed to be Brother Nero. I know Brother Nero needs to be with Matt. But in this situation, it's alright to have Brother Nero be awake once in a while and be seen. Especially after they did 24. I did see it. A pretty good explanation of what happened to Jeff and Matt Hardy in their lives. And they literally used all the stuff that happened in TNA. That means Impact Wrestling had to sign off on most of that stuff. They had to sign off on it. So, thank you to Impact Wrestling for signing off on letting them use some of the footage for that documentary. I know they've done stuff that before, but it doesn't mean that they were going to do it here. So I'm glad they did. But when it comes down to it, ladies and gentlemen, I need Jeff Hardy to be Brother Nero. He just needs to be. Now, what else is missing here? Am I forgetting anything? No, I don't think I am. Let's go to the final match of the night. The Gauntlet match. Now, Paige announced it in the very beginning of the show that there's going to be a Gauntlet match for AJ's title at Extreme Rules. Unless I'm forgetting it and it's not Extreme Rules, I think it is. Okay, I'm alright with this. Daniel Bryan versus Miz versus Samoa Joe versus Big E in the Gauntlet match. Big E starts with Daniel Bryan. Big E, gotta say this. He must be pushed. He must. Next to Kofi Kingston, at this time, he's still red hot. He should be pushed. He should be pushed into the main title scene. But get this, so should Biggie Langston. I know I don't have to say Langston, but I'm doing it anyway. Mr. Langston has come to the building and he whooped some ass. He did really well. That dive outside the ring with Daniel Bryan was beautiful. He didn't really play like he normally did as a New Day member. Of course, he did act the way he did, to a certain extent as a New Day member, but he didn't really play all of it. He didn't start smacking Daniel Bryan on the ass. That one was respectful because they're both faces. Okay. In the end, Biggie loses and Samoa Joe comes in. Good match with Samoa Joe as well. But here's the thing. After the match with Samoa Joe was over and it was a count-out loss for Samoa Joe, that's understandable. They don't want to job out Samoa Joe to Daniel Bryan. But still, what could have happened is that the Bludgeon Brothers could have came in earlier and beat the crap out of him while the match was going on and beat up Samoa Joe. Now, mind you, I didn't want to see the Bludgeon Brothers go up against Daniel Bryan because of what happened after Daniel Bryan came to the ring when they were finishing and there was some type of conflict, because that just feels like it was the only idea they could come up with. But if they're going to run with it, they should have done it more properly. Because I would have liked the Bludgeon Brothers just to come out during the match and not after the match and then nail Daniel Bryan, instead of after the match nailing Daniel Bryan and then the Miz coming out nailing Daniel Bryan and then throwing him out. It's understandable they had to get Miz and Daniel Bryan away from each other as quickly as possible. They had to do it, which they did. And then the end, Rusev Day versus the Moneymaker. I can't believe I just did that. But look, this is the deal. Do I agree with this? No. Honestly, I don't agree with The Miz losing and that it's going to be AJ versus Rusev. I understand why they did it. They don't believe they're ready to actually have a title involving these two. And I'm talking about Daniel Bryan and The Miz, which I believe they should already. This should actually make sense. Having The Miz go up against Daniel Bryan for a title would actually make sense. Look, let's be honest here. This all started because of a title. Because The Miz got angry that his title was not going to be shown on any of that show that was happening 2 years ago. He should have been on the show. He got mad about it, and he vented it to the guy who's representing as the general manager, which we know he's not. This was about a belt, not being sponsored by a guy who is arrogant as fuck. So why not play into that? No. I really think they could have built this up, and The Miz could have easily won the title. Then maybe a couple of weeks later he loses it, and then he goes again against AJ, and then gets it back at SummerSlam, and then you can culminate this entire thing at Survivor Series with Daniel Bryan, if you want to go there and do it in this year. But that's just me. As it stands, is it good to see Rusev going after a title? This isn't the first time he's gone after the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. This is like the third time. He tried it a couple of years ago with John Cena. Didn't get him very far. So, no, once he did. So, technically speaking, this is the first time he's gone for it. But, let's be honest here. I don't want to see Rusev as a heel. Seeing him going against AJ just doesn't feel like it's going to work for me. It's going against the grain because people want to cheer Rusev dead. Now, mind you, if he does win the title, maybe they'll turn him face. But as it stands, I don't want to see it. But it's understandable they had to put someone up against Rusev. No, not Rusev. AJ, because essentially they don't got anybody next to Shinsuke Nakamura for AJ. Rusev is the best shot. But this is my point of view. You guys tell me below. Have a good day. Have a good night. Peace!